and commitment. But for Jessica, it became the day she faced one of the most shocking betrayals a heart can endure. After 5 years of love, planning a future, buying a dress, choosing a honeymoon, she woke up ready to walk into her forever. But the man she was supposed to marry did not show up. No call, no warning, no explanation, just a note. 7 words that would change her life forever. This is not just a story about being left at the altar. It is a story about heartbreak in its rawest form, about having the floor ripped from beneath you in front of everyone you love, and still finding the strength to stand again. What would you do if the person you trusted most abandoned you on the day they promised to never leave? Would you fall apart? Would you search for answers? Or would you find something deeper, stronger? Inside yourself, stay with us, because Jessica's story will remind you that sometimes the day everything falls apart is the same. That you begin to rebuild a version of yourself you never knew you were strong enough to become. Jessica and Ethan met during their senior year of college. It started with coffee shop conversations, midnight library runs, and the kind of laughter that makes you believe some people are meant to find each other. They grew together, moved to a new city, built a life with mismatched furniture, framed photos, and Sunday pancakes made with too much cinnamon and not enough sleep. When Ethan proposed under golden autumn leaves in Central Park, Jessica said yes, without hesitation, because for her, he was home. For a year, they planned their wedding down to every small detail. The flower girls' dresses, the flavor of frosting, the playlist for the first dance. They chose the date, the venue, the honeymoon. Everything felt like a dream coming together. Slowly, deliberately, perfectly. The night before the wedding, Jessica stayed at her best friend's house, following tradition, smiling through the nerves, trying on the veil, just one more time, texting Ethan one last, "I love you," before sleep, but no reply came. She told herself it was fine, that he was resting, saving energy for the biggest day of their lives. Morning came, bridesmaids buzzed with energy, makeup brushes moved in rhythm, the wedding dress hung by the window like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. The guests began to arrive. The air was filled with laughter and champagne, but Ethan was not there. At first it was small concern. Just traffic. Maybe his tie took longer to fix than expected. Then the calls started. Then the silence deepened. And then came his best man, breathless, avoiding her eyes, holding a piece of paper in his trembling hands. A note, crushed and creased. 7 words. "I am sorry. I cannot do this." That was it. No explanation, no apology, no voice. Jessica stood in the middle of a moment that was supposed to be the start of everything, and felt it become the end, right there in front of her parents, her friends, her future. The dress she dreamed of wearing down the aisle never left the hanger. The flowers, the vows, the celebration, all unraveled in seconds. She sat in silence, the bridal bouquet still resting in her lap, mascara smudged not from tears, but from a heartbreak too deep to cry out loud. People whispered, vendors packed up quietly, and Jessica stayed still, because what do you do when your whole future disappears in a single sentence? What do you do when the person who promised forever does not even have the courage to look you in the eye as they walk away? That night, alone in the apartment filled with wedding gifts that would never be used, Jessica looked at the plane tickets to the honeymoon they had booked together. And something inside her shifted. She packed a single suitcase, booked herself on that same flight, not to escape, but to begin. She landed in a new place, with a broken heart, but a soul refusing to stay shattered. And in the sunrise of a city that did not know her name, she made a quiet promise to herself that she would not let someone else's cowardice define the rest of her story. Because sometimes, the person who leaves you at the altar is also the one who unknowingly pushes you toward the strongest version of yourself. Some betrayals are loud, public, messy, but some are silent. Some come folded in half, written in shaky handwriting, delivered like a bomb without a sound. Jessica's story is not just about being left on her wedding day. It is about what happens when the moment you have been building your whole life toward vanishes in front of you without warning, without reason, without even a conversation. It is the kind of pain that lives in the quiet, in unopened gifts, in unanswered texts, in the silence of a song that never played for the first dance. We talk so much about healing, about moving on, but we do not talk enough about the moment right after it happens, when everything is still fresh, when your hands are still shaking, when your heart does not even know how to break yet, because it still has not caught up with what is happening. Jessica was not just grieving a person, she was grieving a life, a future, a version of herself she had built around a promise someone else walked away from. And yet, in the middle of all that wreckage, she made a choice. She did not wait for an apology. She did not beg for closure. She did not let his silence become her story. She boarded a flight that was supposed to be their honeymoon and turned it into the first chapter of her own healing, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do after someone walks away from you is to walk forward without them. Not because it is easy, but because you refuse to shrink to fit the silence they left behind. There are moments in life that will shatter you, but not all broken pieces stay broken. Some of them become sharper, clearer, stronger. Jessica's story is not a tragedy. It is a beginning, disguised as an ending. And the real question is not, why did he leave? The real question is, what kind of woman rises anyway, even when everything around her just told her to fall? And if you are listening right now, still holding on to a heartbreak you never saw coming, let this be a reminder. You are allowed to cry, to shake, to not be okay. But you are also allowed to get up, to book that flight, to start over, and to remind the world that you will never be defined by the person who did not choose you, but by how fiercely you choose yourself. Jessica's story hit hard for so many people because it is one thing to lose love, but it is something else entirely to be left without warning on a day that was supposed to be the beginning of forever. Let us take a moment to listen to what the community had to say. These comments carry the kind of honesty that only comes from lived experience. Who left out of the aisle 8 commented, "Being left like that is not just betrayal. It is emotional abandonment in its most brutal form." 8K likes. So true. Sometimes the pain is not just about losing the person, it is about how they chose to disappear without giving you a voice in the ending. Your Grace, in shadows shared. She turned her honeymoon into a healing trip. That is not weakness, that is raw, beautiful power. 2K likes. Exactly, choosing yourself in the aftermath of someone else's cowardice is one of the loudest forms of self-love. Your silent wedding. Tears wrote, "He gave up everything with 7 words. She rebuilt everything with one decision to leave anyway." 9K likes. Beautifully put. She lost the wedding, but she found something so much bigger, her strength. Not Your closure said, "She did not get closure, she became it. That is what real healing looks like." 5K likes. This hit hard. Sometimes we are the ones who have to close the door ourselves, even when it should have been someone else's responsibility. A broken to brave, Dee commented, "I cried for her, but I stood up with her too, because walking out of that pain was the most inspiring thing I have heard all week." 811K likes. And that is why we tell these stories, not just to remember the heartbreak, but to celebrate the moment someone rises after it. Thank you to everyone who shared their hearts. In the comments, Jessica's story is not just about what she lost. It is about what she chose in the silence. When the music stopped, when the future crumbled, she chose herself. And that might just be the bravest love story of all. If you have ever walked away from something that broke you, tell us in the comments. And if this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe for more real voices, real healing, and real stories that remind us we are not alone. Emma chose herself. After betrayal, a story of strength and healing. Reddit, AITA. Welcome back to the channel. In this life, there are loves that come like a sudden summer rain, unexpected and intense. But there are also breakups that slip away quietly, like the fading light of sunset, leaving behind a silent, nameless pain. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you thought you could never live without them, only to discover one day that their sweetest words were meant for someone else? Have you ever stood in the middle of a crowded street, surrounded by dazzling skyscrapers, yet felt utterly empty inside, wishing you could just disappear from that bustling city? Today, I will share with you a story that takes place across some of the most vibrant cities in America. A love story that seemed perfect at first, but crumbled because of selfish choices. A young woman who had to learn how to let go even when her heart was still holding on. This is not just a story about betrayal. It is about the journey of reclaiming yourself, rising stronger from the wreckage of a broken heart. What would you do if you found out the person you love the most is no longer faithful? Would you forgive and hope, or would you walk away and choose yourself? Let's dive into today's story together, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. Here we go. Emma was 26 years old when she first met Alex. It was a rainy afternoon in New York City, the kind where the clouds seemed heavy enough to touch. She had just spilled coffee on her white blouse at a busy intersection near Times Square. Flustered and embarrassed, she tried to clean it off when a stranger approached with a kind smile and a handful of napkins. That stranger was Alex. He had just moved from Chicago to start a new job at a prestigious financial firm. They laughed about the incident, and what started as a clumsy first encounter quickly blossomed into something beautiful. Within months, Emma and Alex were inseparable. They explored the hidden corners of Brooklyn together, spent lazy Sundays in Central Park, and dreamed of building a life side by side. But dreams often collide with reality as Alex's career soared. So did the demands on his time, frequent business trips to Los Angeles, late nights at the office, missed anniversaries, and forgotten promises. Emma tried to be understanding. She told herself that ambition was part of loving someone in New York. But deep down, she missed the version of Alex, who once stayed up all night just to listen to her talk about her dreams. One evening, while Alex was supposedly on a business trip to San Francisco, Emma received a notification on his tablet. A message popped up, playful and a little too familiar, from someone named Rachel. Curiosity gnawed at her. Against her better judgment, Emma opened the conversation. What she found shattered her flirty texts. Private jokes, plans to meet at a cozy little hotel near Union Square. When Alex returned, Emma confronted him. At first, he denied everything, said it was harmless flirting, nothing serious. But the evidence was undeniable. And eventually, Alex admitted that he had developed feelings for Rachel, that during those lonely nights on the road, he had made choices he now regretted. Emma's world crumbled that night. The man she had trusted with her heart had given pieces of it away to someone else. She packed her things in silence. No shouting, no drama, just a quiet goodbye in the apartment they once called home. Emma left New York and moved to Austin, Texas, a city full of music, art, and new beginnings. There, in the warmth of the southern sun, she started over. Piece by piece, she rebuilt her life. Learning that healing is not a straight line. Some days she missed him. Some days she missed the version of herself when she was with him. But day by day, step by step, Emma became stronger. Not because the pain disappeared, but because she chose to keep walking forward anyway, listening to Emma's story. Perhaps many of us feel a sense of heaviness in our hearts. Love, after all, is built on trust. And once that trust is broken, no matter how deeply you love someone, something inside you changes forever. Some people might say, why not forgive? Everyone makes mistakes, but the truth is, forgiveness is easy. Rebuilding trust is the hardest part. When Emma confronted Alex, she wasn't just confronting the betrayal. She was confronting the reality that the person standing in front of her was no longer the man she once believed in. In every relationship, there comes a moment, a choice, stay and hope for change, or leave and choose yourself. Emma chose the second path, and though it was painful, it was a brave decision in a city like New York, where millions of stories unfold every day. It's easy to lose yourself chasing someone else's dreams, easy to believe that love must come with sacrifice, that hurting is just part of loving. But Emma's story reminds us that love should never ask us to abandon our own worth. Real love nurtures you. It does not diminish you. Walking away was not a sign of weakness. It was a sign of strength. The strength to believe that somewhere, in some future chapter of her life, she would find someone who would choose her every single day, even when life got busy, even when things got tough. And even if she never found that person, Emma would still have herself, whole, unapologetic, and free. Betrayal hurts. But sometimes it opens the door to a life that is truer to who we are. So to anyone who's ever had to walk away from someone they loved, know this, you are not alone. And sometimes leaving is the greatest act of love you can give to yourself. And now, let's dive into some of the most powerful comments from Reddit. Because sometimes the most honest truths come from the voices we least expect. Broken Compass wrote, Emma did not lose anything. She dodged a lifetime of second-guessing and broken trust by walking away. 2K likes. That is such a powerful thought. Sometimes losing someone is actually saving yourself from years of silent heartbreak. Lonely. Phoenix Rises wrote, You cannot rebuild trust on top of lies. It is like building a house on sand. Emma chose solid ground instead. 4. 8K likes, exactly. Real love is not just about feelings. It is about building something that can weather the storms. 2 Midnight. Bloomers wrote, Forgiveness does not mean you owe them a future. Forgiveness means you owe yourself peace. 4 What an inspiring reminder. Letting go is not weakness. It is the ultimate form of self-respect. Oh, silent weddings. Tears wrote, He gave up everything with 7 words. She rebuilt everything with one decision to leave anyway. K. Likes. Beautifully said, sometimes a single choice can redefine an entire life. It takes courage to choose yourself in a world that asks you to settle. You City Lights, Fade wrote, It is painful to realize the person you loved was a stranger all along, but it is freeing to realize you are still whole without them. 6. 1K likes. That hits so deep. True healing begins when you realize your value was never tied to someone else's validation. So what about you? Would you have made the same decision as Emma? Or would you have chosen a different path? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. She walked away without a word. A rainy day. Love story that ended in silence. Reddit. AITA. Welcome back to the channel. Have you ever met someone who felt like they simply belonged in your life? Someone who appeared on a random rainy day and suddenly made all the storms inside you feel a little quieter. Love often begins in the smallest of moments. A shared umbrella, a spilled cup of coffee, a laugh that feels like home, but just like rain washing away the colors of the city. Sometimes even the brightest beginnings can slowly fade into gray. Today's story takes us to the misty streets of Seattle, a city where dreams often float with the morning fog, and where a young couple, Liam and Sophie, believed they had found something lasting. Their love story started with laughter, with long walks under the endless drizzle, with promises whispered between sips of coffee, yet somewhere along the way, between late nights at the office and broken plans, between silent phones and half-hearted apologies, something shifted. In a world where being busy often becomes an excuse for being distant. Liam and Sophie faced a truth neither of them wanted to admit, that love left unattended can quietly slip away. What would you do if you caught a glimpse of the person you love sharing a moment they once saved only for you? Would you fight for them? Would you wait for explanations? Or would you walk away before your heart broke completely? Stay with me as we dive into a story about beginnings that felt like destiny, about endings that hurt like betrayal, and about finding yourself again in the pouring rain. Let's get into it. Liam had always loved the rain. It made the world feel smaller, more intimate, like secrets could hide behind every raindrop. That was the kind of day it was when he met Sophie. She rushed into the small coffee shop near Pike Place Market, her coat dripping, her cheeks flushed from the cold. In her hurry to find a seat, she bumped into Liam, sending his coffee spilling across the table and onto the floor. Embarrassed, she apologized over and over and offered to replace it. Liam laughed, a real laugh, the kind that makes strangers feel like old friends. They ended up sharing a new cup of coffee, and then another, and before they knew it, hours had passed. That day marked the beginning of something beautiful. Liam, the logical engineer, fell for Sophie's chaotic energy, her endless stories about dreams and colors and faraway places she wanted to paint Sophie. The artist who lived with her heart on her sleeve found comfort in Liam's quiet steadiness, his way of listening without ever trying to fix her. For 18 months, their world was filled with small, perfect moments. Morning walks under gray skies, late-night talks about everything and nothing. Plans whispered into the spaces between their dreams. But as time went on, life crept in. The demands of work tightened around Liam like a noose. Meetings ran late. Phone calls were missed. Promises to come home early turned into apologies left on voicemail. Sophie tried to understand. She knew how much his career meant to him, but understanding does not stop loneliness from growing. And soon, the space between them was filled with silence more than conversation. She started saving up all her little victories, her new painting series, her first small gallery showing, waiting for the right time to share them with Liam, waiting for him to notice again. One Friday evening, Sophie decided enough was enough. She packed a bag with his favorite pastries, slipped a brand-new sketchbook into her tote bag, and made her way to his apartment, hoping to remind them both why they fell in love in the first place. But what she found instead was Liam standing on the balcony, sharing a bottle of wine and quiet laughter with another woman. It was subtle. No touching, no words that could not be explained away. But Sophie could feel it, in the way Liam looked at her, soft, familiar. The same way he once looked at Sophie when love was still young between them. She froze for a moment, letting the scene carve itself into her memory. Not with anger, not with tears, but with a kind of tired acceptance. When Liam noticed her standing there, his smile faltered. He rushed to explain, saying it was just a co-worker, just a friend, nothing to worry about. Sophie listened, nodded politely, and placed the sketchbook down by his door. She did not raise her voice, she did not demand answers, because deep down she knew she deserved more than excuses and half-truths. That night, as the rain poured over Seattle, Sophie walked away, not because she had stopped loving Liam, but because she finally realized love should never make you feel like you are asking for too much, and maybe, just maybe, some goodbyes are really beginnings dressed in heartbreak. Listening to Sophie's story, it is impossible not to feel a deep ache in your chest. Because sometimes love does not end in loud arguments or dramatic betrayals. Sometimes it just fades quietly, lost in the spaces between missed calls and broken promises. Liam and Sophie's relationship is a mirror for so many modern love stories. It starts with sparks and laughter, with promises whispered over coffee cups. But over time, life pulls people in different directions. Careers demand attention, responsibilities pile up, and without realizing it, the person you once called your everything becomes a stranger standing across a crowded room. What hurt Sophie the most was not the presence of another woman. It was the absence of the man she thought she knew. The moments of connection that used to be theirs alone had been given away carelessly, thoughtlessly, and when trust begins to erode, even the smallest actions feel like earthquakes. Even innocent laughter shared with someone else can sound like a goodbye. You were not prepared to hear Sophie's decision to leave. Was not impulsive. It was not an act of anger. It was a quiet reclaiming of her worth. A recognition that staying in a place where you are no longer fully seen is lonelier than walking into the unknown alone. Many people believe love is about fighting for someone, no matter what. About staying through every rough patch. But real love is a two-way street, and it requires presence, effort, and most of all, respect. When one person stops choosing you every day, when they begin offering pieces of themselves to others, it is not weakness to walk away. It is courage. Sophie showed us that choosing yourself is not selfish. It is essential that loving someone deeply does not mean tolerating being treated like an option. And sometimes, the hardest goodbyes are the ones you say without raising your voice, without slamming a door, just a soft, final step toward healing. For anyone listening today, remember this: you deserve a love that feels like home, not a love where you are constantly knocking on a door that someone else has locked behind them. Now, let us take a moment to hear what the Reddit community had to say about Sophie's story. Sometimes strangers can put into words the feelings we struggle to express ourselves. Wandering Soul wrote, "When someone stops making you a priority, that is your sign to stop making them your home." 2K likes. What a beautiful reminder. Love is not just about staying. It is about being chosen every day. Without that, it is just loneliness in disguise. U Golden Sun, after rain, wrote, "Walking away is not giving up. It is giving yourself a chance to find someone who chooses you without hesitation." 5. K likes absolutely choosing yourself after heartbreak is not weakness. It is a quiet but powerful act of self-respect. The art of letting go wrote, "It hurts to realize you were holding on to memories while they were already moving on. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to let go first." 7. 1K likes. That hits so deep. Sophie let go, not because she stopped loving Liam, but because she refused to keep watering a garden that no longer grew. 2 city lights. Whisper wrote, "1,000 I am busy texts cannot replace one. I made time for you. If they wanted to, they would." 6, 7K likes. That is so true. Effort is the clearest form of love. When someone cares, you do not have to wonder where you stand. Midnight. Paper Planes wrote, "She gave her love like a masterpiece, but he treated it like a draft. Sophie deserved a gallery, not a storage room." 8. 2K likes beautifully said, "Love should be celebrated, not hidden away." Sophie deserved someone who saw her brilliance, not someone who treated her as an afterthought. Reading all these comments, one thing becomes very clear. Love should never feel like a one-sided conversation. If you find yourself constantly explaining your worth, maybe it is time to stop talking and start walking. What about you? Have you ever had to make a decision like Sophie did? Share your story in the comments below. I would love to hear it. She got ready to say I do. He left her with a note. Shocking true story. Have you ever stood on the edge of your forever heart, full of love, eyes full of dreams, only to be pushed off that edge by the one person you trusted most? Have you ever prepared for the happiest day of your life, only to be met with silence, where vows should have been, with a folded note, where a hand to hold should have been? Tonight, we step into a story that begins on the day most love stories are supposed to culminate. A wedding day, a day of joy, celebration, and commitment. But for Jessica, it became the day she faced one of the most shocking betrayals a heart can endure. After 5 years of love, planning a future, buying a dress, choosing a honeymoon, she woke up ready to walk into her forever. But the man she was supposed to marry did not show up. No call, no warning, no explanation, just a note. 7 words that would change her life forever. This is not just a story about being left at the altar. It is a story about heartbreak in its rawest form, about having the floor ripped from beneath you in front of everyone you love, and still finding the strength to stand again. What would you do if the person you trusted most abandoned you on the day they promised to never leave? Would you fall apart? Would you search for answers? Or would you find something deeper, stronger? Inside yourself, stay with us, because Jessica's story will remind you that sometimes the day everything falls apart is the same. That you begin to rebuild a version of yourself you never knew you were strong enough to become. Jessica and Ethan met during their senior year of college. It started with coffee shop conversations, midnight library runs, and the kind of laughter that makes you believe some people are meant to find each other. They grew together, moved to a new city, built a life with mismatched furniture, framed photos, and Sunday pancakes made with too much cinnamon and not enough sleep. When Ethan proposed,